The following program is sponsored by John Chachis Insurance, your local farmer's insurance agent located at 800 Avenue G in Ely, and brought to you as a public service by Ely TV, Channel 3-2 in Ely, Nevada. Special meeting of the White Pine Historical Railroad Foundation Board of Trustees and the White Pine Historical Railroad Foundation Management Board, February 25th, 2014.
Our joint us in the Pledge of Allegiance, our veteran here will be us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have here, clergy. We have anyone here with the clergy? David, will you give us a word of prayer? Sure.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful for this day and for the beautiful day which we've had to work and enjoy our freedoms in this land. Please bless us tonight that we can have thy guidance here, that the right decisions may be made, that we can all support and uphold the laws of our land and make our community a better place. And we do these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Present.
Trustee Setterstrom.
Present.
Trustee Durbridge, you're absent. Trustee Reed.
Here.
Trustee Westland.
Here.
Chairman Gianoli.
Here.
Member Bowers.
Here.
Member Marsh.
Here.
Member Lee.
Here.
Member Larson.
Here.
City Attorney Sears.
Here.
Foundation Attorney Husbands.
Here.
Executive Director Bassett.
Here.
That's all, Chairman.
Thank you. It's not on the agenda, and I don't want to get in trouble by putting something out there that's not on the agenda, but I think it might be appropriate, in light of the passing of the mayor, to have maybe a moment of silence. Thank you. It's probably appropriate to begin. We are all, of course, saddened and shocked by his sudden passing, and miss his presence here tremendously. Comments not exceeding 3 minutes in length will be accepted from the general public in attendance. If any are made, there may be discussion upon those comments. No vote, decision, or action may be taken upon matters raised under this item until it is formally placed on the agenda. Comments during the discussion items will not be accepted from the general public. Section 8.04 of the Nevada Open Meeting Law Manual indicates that the body public may prohibit content if the content of the comments is of a topic that is not relevant to or within the authority of the public body, or if the content or the comments, that should be are instead of is, the English teacher is having a fit here, willfully disruptive of the meeting by being irrelevant, repetitious, slanderous, offensive, inflammatory, irrational, or in my case, grammatically incorrect, or amounting to personal attacks or interfering with the rights of other speakers. Close quote with qualifications. We will now take comments from the general public. They can be grammatically incorrect or not. Oh, the content is, okay, I said corrected, so content is the subject, singular, third person, yes, is the correct conjugation.
Chairman, I've got 8 letters, or 8 emails from the public to read.
Thank you.
And I'll read them in the order they were received. Dear Ms. Lee, I am a volunteer with the Nevada Northern Railroad, and I wish to see it continue under its present management structure. Thank you. Judith R. Schill from Las Vegas. I have been a life member since May 2001 and volunteer at the railroad since 2002. I live in California, but due to my volunteering at the railroad, I purchased a house in Ely in 2006 and furnished the house with purchases at both Wilson Bates and Sharps. Due to owning a house, I figure I am a part-time resident of Ely. When I figured, when I started volunteering in 2002, you should have seen the place. The yard was full of sagebrush, the track and switches were in very poor shape, and many of the buildings were about to fall down. Now look at the railway. The yards are clean, many of the buildings have been fixed, the track is in much better shape, and really it does not look like the rundown place it was 12 years ago. All because of the present management team, which I understand was hired about the time I started volunteering. I would urge the City Council to stay out of trying to run the railroad and let the White Pine Historical Railroad Foundation management continue doing a great job. Bill Holt, Walnut Creek, California. White Pine Historical Railroad Foundation Board of Trustees and Management Board. I've been a volunteer at the Nevada Northern Railway since 2001. My service has included 100 to 200 hours per year in operation and maintenance activities, cash donations and surveying and engineering work. Parentheses, the aerial survey mapping of the East Ely Yard being the more prominent service which my company provided in association with Spencer B. Gross. In regards to the special meeting of the White Pine Historical Railroad Foundation Board of Trustees and the White Pine Historical Railroad Foundation Management Board to be held on February 25th, 2014, Agenda Item 3, Items for Discussion. I have the following comment for your consideration. 3, Review of Foundation's employee policy. I donate my time and energies for the benefit of the White Pine Historical Railroad Foundation and the Nevada Northern Railway. I do not wish to be employed by, donate time to, or otherwise be bound by any employee policy of the City of Ely. Thank you for your consideration of my comment. John Langford. To the White Pine Historical Railroad Foundation Board of Trustees. It is with great disdain and disappointment to me that it appears that Ely City Council seems inclined to interject its influence into the management of the Nevada Northern Railway Museum. It sounds like a classic case of if it's not broke, let's fix it. My name is John Tyson, and I have been a volunteer on the Nevada Northern Railway Museum for more than 15 years. I've seen it all, including the 2002 Winter Olympics, where I was assigned as an engineer on Engine 93. Through it all, the cold winters, hot summers, photo shoots, and many other engine assignments throughout the year, it never occurred to me that an additional management layer was necessary to run this one-of-a-kind railroad experience. I can only surmise that perhaps politics is somehow part of this departure from the way the Railway Museum has been managed in the past, or perhaps it's because the railroad has been so successful under the watchful eye of the White Pine Historical Railroad Foundation Management Board. The City Council wants to be part of the action. Railroad operations, especially here on the Nevada Northern, is truly unique. Under the management board, this railroad has not only survived the scrappers' torch, but has succeeded to become one of the great historical railroads in the world. Don't take my word for it, just search the internet and read the comments of rail fans around the globe. The Nevada Northern Railway Museum is one of those photographed, admired, and respected short-line railroads, and it didn't happen by accident. It took vision and planning and the ability to promote this historical adventure so far from anywhere. Engine and train crews donate their time and expense to come here. We go through hours and hours of training, check rides, and rules testing to ensure that we who run these 100-year-old treasures do so safely and efficiently. All that being said, I do believe the Foundation Management Board should continue to manage the railroad. It's unfortunate that government, whether it's local, regional, or national, seems to embrace a bureaucratic attitude toward management. The Nevada Northern Railway Museum doesn't need another layer of bureaucracy. The foundation is doing just fine, thank you, and I would urge you, the good council members, to leave well enough alone. Trust me when I say it's doing just fine. All you have to do is sit back and enjoy it. Respectfully submitted, John Tyson, Virginia City, Nevada. White Pine Historical Railroad Foundation Board of Trustees, dear sirs, please review the City of Ely Quarterly Revenue and Expenditure Report for the period ending December 31st, 2013, which was published in the Ely Times for February 21st through the 27th, 2014. The revenues for taxes and assessments is $40,269.98 for the period actual, and $38,432.93 for the year-to-date actual. How did the revenues reverse for the year-to-date actual? The year-to-date is less than the period actual. The numbers for expenses do not add to the total published of $232,279.10. they add up to $132,078.37. The math is not correct. The expenses are overstated by over $100,000. And then she has in parentheses $100,000 exclamation point. The revenues for the period actual are $175,571.84. The expenses for the period actual are $175,571.84. But the ending balance is a negative $56,707.26 for the period actual. No balance was listed for the beginning fund balance. Period actual road fund revenue is $14,500.27. Period actual road fund total expenses are $14,500.27. But the ending fund balance is a negative $85,700.46. No balance was listed for the beginning fund balance. Published year-to-date for the road fund total revenues are $72,596.10. Road fund total expenses are $72,596.10. But the ending road fund balance is $199,785.22. Since detail is not published for line items, it is the duty of the Ely City Councilman to take a close look at this report. I recommend the city take a closer look at its accounting before assuming any additional accounting duties from the railroad. A copy of the report from www.elycity.com is attached. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Paula Carson. I have several questions that I would like addressed and answered. Number one, why has the City Council determined this is an important need? After all the years of the foundation operating the railroad independently of the city, what has occurred that requires this immediate action? What would happen if the railroad continued operation with only its own oversight? Two, what is to be accomplished for the railroad and its operation by having a management board? More importantly, how or why does the city really benefit? And if they do not benefit, what again is the purpose? What are the pros and cons of having just one or both performing this function? 4, how does this impact the funding that is currently required for the railroad? Will the funding and the interest earned be fully earmarked for the railroad? 5, will the residents of Ely now or at some point in the future be taxed for operations funding needed by the railroad? 6, who will hold the purse strings if there is both a management board and the city of Ely equally responsible for the management of the railroad? 7, how does the city of Ely becoming involved impact the original documentation between Kennecott and the railroad as it operates today? 8, do paid positions need to be created for the board created by the city? Where is that funding coming from? The railroad, as it has been operating, has been a tremendous boon to our community and to our local service providers. We have visitors from around the world who travel to Ely because of today's operating railroad. Let's not do anything to jeopardize the railroad or our community. Respectfully, Brent Rose. Let's look at the recent questions that have been raised by the City Council regarding the railroad and then at some of the facts. The assertion that the 2012 audit raises red flags is incorrect. There are no red flags. Red flags would be labeled material findings in accounting language. The most recent audit has no material findings. It has 4 or 5 significant findings, half of which are already corrected and none of which are red flags. Even calling them yellow flags could be a bit of a stretch. A comparison of the audits for the past 6 years shows 2 clear trends: a tremendous and steady growth in assets and a significant and consistent decrease in liabilities. The most recent audit found less than a 5% discrepancy between actual cash on hand and what the books showed. Not bad for a business that has a budget of over $1 million. To my way of thinking, the audits show a business enterprise that is vital and thriving. The Nevada Northern Railway is fiscally sound, and there are no smoking financial guns. Now that the audit looks like it's not going to pan out to be a real issue, the City Council seems to want, well, do something with the personnel manual of the railroad. Revise it? Rewrite it? Why? What's next? Taking issue with the train schedule, or maybe investigating the food sold at the concession stand, or deliberating about what color paper the tickets are printed on? Where does this micromanaging stop? It looks to many people in our community that this City Council, under the guise of fiduciary responsibility, is taking actions that will erode the wonderful reputation with tourists, tourism operators, and financial supporters that the railroad has built up over the past 7 or 8 years. We have very real concerns about undermining the reputation of our railroad in this way. These actions of the City Council can very easily become a self-fulfilling prophecy because the railroad's reputation is tarnished, even if the attacks are completely unfounded. The effects on trust, desire to lend and grant money, and visitation can be devastating. Not much is different financially and managerially speaking at the railroad in February 2014 than it was in February 2013 or February 2012, except that the railroad is in better shape financially and otherwise now than it was then. Why then has the City Council suddenly taken on this pursuit of delving into railroad finances and business practices, even to the point of examining its personnel manual? There is a point at which oversight becomes burdensome to day-to-day operation and harms that which is being overseen. I believe that the City Council's actions are now approaching this point. Its actions are siphoning energy and resources away from mission-critical activities of the railroad. The City Council needs to stop micromanaging the railway and let the Nevada Northern Railway Foundation continue to do its own job, oversee the railroad, and guide its growth and its success in bringing tourists and tourism dollars into our community. Susan Wetmore, February 25th, 2014. Trustees of the Foundation. I am David Rabber and volunteer at the Nevada Northern Railway and a longtime volunteer advocate for Ely, White Pine County, and beautiful surrounding country here. I join the majority of citizens in Ely wanting to preserve the heritage that is Nevada Northern Railway. We understand that this is not an easy task. Many things in Ely are made more difficult due to how remote it is. Fortunately, that has not stopped the community from great accomplishments for over 100 years. I also join others who are concerned that the original structuring of the foundation is turning out to be inadequate for where we need it to be. If the foundation is to be self-sufficient, it will need to grow by some measurable amount to reach that equilibrium. There are just too many fixed costs to shrink or even keep it at the current level. The trustees must give careful attention to the best structure to attract and nurture entrepreneurial growth and believe in the self-sustaining equilibrium that we all want for the foundation. Without entrepreneurial growth, I fear that we will find out that we just can't afford to subsidize a half-scale operation and will end up scrapping it. How many of the citizens of Ely would want to even flirt with starting down that path? I believe the current situation calls for a restructure that reproposes that the management board to be the board of directors. Allow me to explain why structure is so important. In my business career, I have had the good fortune of having, most 96 of the top 100 collegiate athletics teams as customers for the ticketing and access management software that my company creates. I see many parallels between the foundation and the city. First is top college athletic departments or university in your state. Pick your favorite successful college athletic team. Give a moment's thought to why some teams seem to prosper year after year with different players and even different coaches, while other teams do not. Ask yourself what makes the difference between a great program year after year and a mediocre program. If you think that success is governed by the amount of money a state has to throw at college athletics, you would miss the mark. The top programs you can name consistently make money for the university and the state, not take money from them. I can tell you from experience that in the vast majority of cases, the difference in a truly successful program is the structure of the college athletic department. The successful program set up a foundation similar to the one that currently runs the railroad. That foundation is given entrepreneurial responsibility and authority to grow the franchise. The only real question the chancellor or the governor asks is how much is going to be returned to the university next year, and if they can get a few free seats for the homecoming game. The athletic foundation is on the hook to hire an executive and then have that executive recruit and retain great coaches and great fund development directors to execute the program and grow it. From over 10 years of observation, it appears to me that you're off to a good start. You have an excellent managing director of your franchise and a willing, dedicated management board. I urge you to complete the task of putting entrepreneurial governance in place by setting them up with full responsibility and authority for the success of the railroad. resist the temptation to turn this into a political management by committee. No successful organization thrives in that environment. In the long run, I'm certain that Ely will reap the benefit of the entrepreneurial success for the Nevada Northern Railroad. Sincerely, David Raber.
Would that be all?
That'll be all.
You okay?
Yep.
Shorter to read the entire Pauline epistles. Okay, public comment from the body here. Be happy to hear from you. I should preface that by saying thank you all so very much for coming. We appreciate your interest here. We're glad that you're here. We're grateful to have here the management board with us, and so we invite you now, those who wish to come forward, to introduce yourselves so we know who it is, so that we can have that record, and tell us what you want us to hear.
Hi, my name is Jim Northness, city resident. I have a couple questions. Number one is item 3, discussion for possible action reviewing the foundation's employee policy manual and or adding to or creating a new policy manual that mirrors the city's employees. What I say, if they are following their present policy manual and nothing needs to be changed. So I think that if the railroad in itself is following that, I think those rules are set up. There's a couple other questions that I have, not so much on the agenda, but what my concerns are is we have 2 members of the management board that are owners of the Great Basin and Northern Railroad. They sit on the management board and they have leased 35 miles of track from the historical railroad. I don't know how, the Great Basin and Northern Railroad is a for-profit, state-regulated corporation, or it is stated in the Secretary of State as for-profit. So I think we have 2 members of the management board that are being able to make decisions on their own property in concerning the historical railroad. I think that itself should change. I also believe that the executive director of the railroad is part owner of that Great Basin and Northern Railroad. Now, I might be wrong, and I'm just coming from hearsay. I understand that the Great Basin Northern Railroad has sold tax credits on an annual basis for $1,900 per mile, around $66,000. How is that money getting back to the historical railroad? Is that Great Basin Northern, since they're a for-profit corporation, are they bringing in, are they paying taxes to the government over the money they bring in off the tax credits? Those are just a few questions. This ongoing smoke screen, I felt it's been brought up by the management board and Mr. Bassett, is because there's something to hide. Now, let me ask you a question. What about the 128 miles of the Northern Railroad? What are the intentions of that? The public has a right to know. And the final thing I got to say, if the city of Ely turns over to the management board, the board of trustees, you are no longer part of the railroad. So just get the heck out. Let them run it on their own. Don't have anything to do with them. Do not let them use the city to get any finances, including grants or whatever, and let's see how they can run it. One of the things I read is that the city, or that by taking the board of trustees away from the city and putting them with the railroad management board, it puts you on an equal basis. I'm going to tell you something. As a resident and a taxpayer, I do not want anybody making decisions on my property or my taxes that I don't have the right to vote for. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once? Going twice?
Republic, have you had those for a while?
That's the
There was
first-
nothing in the packet.
They were received after the packet.
Okay, they
This
should
is the
be
first item
available
down.
at the meeting, and
Yeah,
that was not done.
they're right here.
Okay, I'll pick those up, but they should be distributed.
There's your copy.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'm concerned that there's a lot of misinformation out in the public in regards to where you folks are going. You're here basically to address an item on the audit, not to take away any managing abilities from the other board. There's no need to stir it up any more than what we have to. You need to stay focused on what the problem is. And the problem in the audit is you got to account for that loan money. How you going to pay it back? That's basically it. A lot of this other stuff, I'm afraid, is clouding the issue. It's unfortunate. Mr. Chairman, there's nothing in the packet given the history of the monies loaned to Mark Bassett. When was the loans approved? When were they put on an agenda? Doesn't matter which one. Who approved them? There's no history. We don't know what's going on, and that needs to be addressed by everybody. I'm concerned that initially Mr. Bassett stated the loans were interest-free. Now, according to the information I have in the packet, it appears the taxpayers are expected to pay interest for another person's loan. You should assume the non-interest loan if it was properly done. Why would we now consider a loan, and what was it for? You need to state what you're spending your money on, and that wasn't done. If it was done, I'm lacking the material in the packet. Mr. Chairman, in coming to the meeting today, I want to review my concern about ADA access to this building. It's not proper, it needs to be addressed. Also, at a previous meeting, Mr. Stork made some comments in regards to something that Councilman Sederstrom did that may have been damaged, and if it was damaged, was he going to pay for it? Now, I understand that damage was taken care of, and Mr. Sederstrom, I believe, paid for some kind of item. Okay. My concern is this gentleman, Mr. Stork, had a vehicle wreck, knew what the policy is, didn't take a drug test, and I want to know if that gentleman is going to pay for the damage done to the city vehicle, as well as to the damage done to the private vehicle that he ran into. Mr. Chairman, there's no one looking at the lack of ADA access on the corners of 11th and Avenue C. The county is about to put their administration offices there. No one has addressed the width of the sidewalk installed behind the grandstands again on First Street, and I'll bring these up again later on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Don't be bashful. This is your chance. So. Going once, going twice. In that case, we will now move on. Items for discussion, possible action of the White Pine Historical Railroad Foundation Board of Trustees and the White Pine Historical Railroad Foundation Management Board. Number 1, Trustees, Management Board Member, City Attorney Sears. Discussion for possible action, review history of railroad formation and consideration of articles of incorporation and bylaw changes to improve current management operations. I appreciate the rather thorough analysis which you provided in historical background there.
I don't intend to read it. I provided a document.
I read it.
Called good for you. You and I are the only two.
I read it. Oh, here we go.
Oh, I read it.
Very good. Well, at any rate, I prepared the paper on Saturday, and a lot of it was from memory. Some of it was from documents that I had available. There's a missing date in there. Part of the reason I copyrighted this because I don't want this out until I fix that dates. Okay? It's not any desire to make money off of it. But I just assumed that this thing wasn't generally published until I can verify the dates. Mark Bassett and I have already talked about that.
Right.
He's aware of the problem, and he's going to try and give me the dates that I can give you. I tried to make it as neutral as I possibly could in terms of an analysis and a history. Whether you agree with that, that was certainly my goal. I don't know if I succeeded, but anyway, that was where I'm at. If you've got questions about it, I'll be happy to answer those questions.
I was impressed to read that in the event that the, heaven forbid, the railroad were to go out of business, that the personal property consisting of the cars and so forth that were left behind by Kennecott revert to Kennecott, but the real property reverts to the state of Nevada.
It was sort of an odd decision on the part of Kennecott. My hunch